Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Sam Admian. Today I'm joined by Connor.
Hey, guys.
And Mike.
Hello.
And it feels like we've been here before, but my gut feeling is that we're truly here now. We're on the precipice of the Switch Successor announcement. I mean, I feel like we could get a direct basically any day now. We are that close. But I say that because we've been here before and we've been burned by Nintendo many times.
We recorded a very similar episode, I think 2 years ago, although it was for a Switch Pro, maybe?
Right, yeah. That was back when Switch Pro was rumored to be a thing
and then
that
it was
existed.
The Switch OLED instead.
Yeah, I don't think it was the Switch OLED. Like, that's what we got. I don't think that's what the rumors were about. I am inclined to believe there was a Switch Pro in the pipeline at some point.
I think so too, but plans shift, and Nintendo is truly the hardest to guess out of everyone. I think we make reasonable guesses about Microsoft and Sony all the time that come to pass, but Nintendo really does seem to be that wild card that is hard to pin down. But we are certainly close. If not this week, I would wager sometime before the end of 2024, we are certainly going to get a reveal for this thing. It is almost certainly going to be released next year, probably early next year.
I suspect we'll have a reveal this month in September 2024.
Yeah. No, it could be. It could honestly be tomorrow. Yeah, it could be tomorrow. Yeah.
Hopefully we get the episode out first.
So if it is tomorrow, that'll make this episode interesting. Maybe we just amend a Switch reaction to it and have a gargantuan 4-hour episode or something. But but what I wanted to float by you guys, because we are approaching that release date, lots of chatter online about it, lots of alleged leaks, because apparently this thing is being manufactured right now in China, and there are these Chinese leakers that claim to be saying some very bold things about this console. So I'm gonna drop some stuff on you.
Okay, me and Mike haven't seen these, so
apparently this thing is just called Switch 2. That's the first one.
This leak's not real then. There's no way.
You don't think so?
Yeah, no way. They're gonna.
I don't know what I'll
Switch
do, but
U or something.
They have thrown away 100% of their credibility just now. There's no doubt in my mind.
They've been traumatized by the Wii U so much that they're just going to stick to boring names from now on.
They won't. They've been traumatized before. The Wii U isn't even their worst failure.
Yeah, maybe they'd call it the Switch. It wouldn't be the Switch 2. They might go with the Switch U.
Switch Pro.
the Wii Switch.
But this is one of my predictions I wanted to talk about
Switch?
Later. It's going to be called the Super Nintendo Switch, and I will.
We guessed that title a while back.
We did, and I stand by it.
That's a fantastic title. And
it's the SNS.
It's so good. There's just no way Nintendo will do it.
Nintendo's
when it comes to names,
crafty with their console names, right?
I don't know. They've knocked it out of the park. Like the Game Boy Color. Excellent. The Game Boy Advance. Excellent.
Yeah, but that was so long ago.
The 3DS.
The new
That's
Switch?
great. That's great.
What if it's called the new Switch?
The new Switch would be awful.
The new Nintendo Switch.
I would hate that. But they already did that
that
once. The DS, the 3DS.
Yeah. The Switch Eye.
It's gonna be the Super Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, the Super Nintendo Switch sounds the best.
What's the rest of the leak? Let's continue.
So this Chinese leaker, who is part of the manufacturing, allegedly, right? Take all of this with a massive grain of salt. This is the era where, right before the reveal, we get to have fun with all these leaks and stuff. So even if none of this comes to pass, it is what it is. But it apparently says Switch 2 on the side of the console. The screen is much bigger than the original Switch, and it's being manufactured with a black and white Joy-Con. Okay, that all sounds pretty normal.
None of that's credible. No,
right? By normal, I mean sane, right? It's
sane.
Nothing is crazy yet.
A black and white Joy-Con is unlikely, I think.
Have they used black and white yet
for
the Nintendo Switch?
No, they haven't.
So, to me, that points to it being...
I mean, they've used black and they've used white, but they haven't used them together.
Yeah, well, they do have that two-tone thing going for Joy-Cons most of the time. I know with the original Switch, it launched with the gray ones that were monotone and then the neon blue and neon red, right?
Yeah.
And now we have all sorts of colors, but it seems like the two-tone thing was the most popular for the Nintendo Switch.
I agree. Black and white is so not Nintendo, I think.
Yeah.
It's
hard to say.
They've released stuff like that later, like down the line on a lot of consoles. The only I mean, the Wii U, I guess they did that, and it was a colossal failure.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So Nintendo Switch 2, bigger screen, black-white Joy-Cons. All of this is still within the realm of, okay, if this all is true, that's believable, right?
Yeah.
But let me hit you with this next massive rumor that these Chinese leakers are talking about. And this is the thing a lot of people are talking about right now. It is going to be a dual-screen console, like a DS.
I think... So I this one is also in my predictions. This was a long shot prediction for me, but I would actually love to see this. I would love to see a dock, like the reverse Wii U. Like you're holding the actual console in your hand, but the dock could be wireless and put something on the TV. I'd actually love to see this.
Yeah, so the TV will be your second screen. But how will this work?
Wireless
right?
4K.
Yeah,
that's
I don't.
ambitious.
It's
not impossible though. Wi-Fi 7 can do it easy.
This is the biggest pie in the sky rumor to me, where if it's
I
true,
don't
I'll
think
be
so.
like, wow. Like, I don't think it's true either, but at the same time, Nintendo always has to come out with that wild card factor, and this definitely fits that bill.
I mean, the technology's there, man. I have sitting next to me a headset that can do greater than 4K wireless VR at 120 frames per second. So there's no reason that this couldn't happen.
And plus, if this thing is a dual-screen console, that suddenly opens up a huge library of DS games to be ported forward as well.
Yep. And
those
all
are
the
kind
Wii
of
U
just
games.
locked away. Yeah, and Wii U games as well.
Yeah.
So,
no, I would love to see it. I miss the dual screen form factor. I love my Nintendo 3DS. I loved the DS. The Wii U, I feel like never really got to do it, you know?
Right.
But I love that form factor. I love I'm just sitting here immediately. I'm seeing all these things they could do with it, which like the Wii U was cool because you could do multiplayer and the person who had the gamepad had a screen, but then everybody else had a normal controller and was using the TV. But now what if think of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures on the GameCube where everybody had their Game Boy Advance and sometimes they were on that screen, but sometimes they were sharing the big screen. There's a lot of cool... It's an unexplored space or an underexplored space. I'd actually really love to see this happen.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very bold, and Nintendo is nothing if not bold.
The problem is all the games would have to work without it.
I know, right? Yeah,
the games have to be portable too.
So I really think it's unlikely. If it is true, then wow, we certainly have a lot to talk about. But Mike, what do you think of a DS-like Nintendo Switch 2?
I feel like we're past the era of dual screen consoles. And I just don't think Nintendo's going to do it. I think they're either going to focus on upping its power and bringing it up to par with last gen, or something else. Because I think we've moved past gimmicks. The Switch already has a market. And it doesn't need a gimmick to stand out. I mean, it has a stranglehold on the portable, non-portable game systems.
What you're saying is definitely the safe play.
Yeah.
The safest play is slightly bigger screen, higher resolution, more powerful.
Yeah. And historically, Nintendo doesn't make the safe play, but I would argue Nintendo presently is in a historic position. They are the strongest they have ever been, and now is not the time to plunder, right?
I mean, they have done it twice. The NES to the Super NES, pretty much just a power upgrade. The N64 to the GameCube, pretty much just a power upgrade. There's precedent for them to do just a power upgrade.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly, I would rather see them take a long shot, personally, because...
Right, but I'm talking from the perspective of them as a company.
Yes.
They're currently at their highest high.
They're also under new leadership, right? Like, Iwata was still around when the Switch launched, right?
I think no. When the Switch launched, he'd already passed away. His final kind of... He definitely had a hand in the Switch's launch before passing away.
This is the first one that he will not have had a hand
this is
in.
No involvement from Iwata. He was certainly not alive when this thing was starting to be designed. But yeah, it's an exciting time. It's hard to know. You've got these actually insane rumors flying around of a new DS-like console.
Is there anything else to the rumor?
No, that was the big one. That was the huge shocker to me, that this leaker is claiming that this is a dual screen console, and I'm just wow. I never would have guessed that.
See, I thought I had seen a week or two ago something similar, but then they went on to describe some launch titles that immediately trashed their credibility further.
Oh, what launch titles did
They an open world Mario, which sounded like normal.
Right, that's not unreasonable.
It's not.
Right?
It's not unreasonable. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was a Mario Kart idea that sounded really stupid and boring. I can't remember what it was though, off the top of my head. And it was a 4chan post.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
that I
guess,
saw posted somewhere else for what it's worth.
Speculating on the launch lineup, though, I mean, I would certainly expect a Mario Kart. I would certainly expect a 3D Mario.
It's the safest bet in the world is that there's a 3D Mario launch for this thing. I think Metroid Prime as well will be cross-gen.
I think, yeah, that's a safe bet. I mean, it's simply just looking at the trailer for Prime 4, it did seem kind of, okay, this might be pushing the Switch quite a bit if this truly is on the Nintendo Switch.
I think it'll run fine on the Nintendo Switch. We've seen what Retro is capable of with Metroid Prime Remastered. I just think it will have enhancements for the Switch 2, or the Super Nintendo Switch, as it were. Right.
And I will still die on this hill. I still think either Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom is coming to the Switch successor in a remastered capacity. I have no evidence to back that up. I just firmly believe it's going to happen.
So I have no evidence to back this up, but my biggest and boldest claim that I think is actually pretty likely is that the Nintendo Switch is going to have more, or the Switch 2 is going to have a release similar to the Game Boy Color, which is that it'll be fully backwards compatible with all the Nintendo Switch games. It will also get new games where it'll be the same cartridge, but on the Switch 2, it will run better or have some kind of enhancement, but that cartridge would still run on a Nintendo Switch. And then Nintendo will also do upgraded remasters for it, like they did for Link's Awakening. Link's Awakening DX added color and a new dungeon. And they, especially because they didn't do any DLC for Tears of the Kingdom, I think they're going to do this. I think they're going to do an expansion. And I think because it's 2024, I think it might be something you can get as a downloadable. You won't have to buy the entire game a second time to get this, maybe.
Yeah, they'll probably offer like cross whatever.
Yeah, we'll see. But I do think we're going to have we're going to have a couple years where there are going to be games coming out that will run on the Switch or the Switch 2 before they fully move on. They have that massive install base, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's in many ways it's similar to the PS4, PS5 situation where there's just this ginormous install base, 100 million plus users, and they're not going to be too eager to abandon those to move on to the next hardware.
I'm curious to see how they do it, though, because when it was the Game Boy Color, the way they did it, a gray cartridge was a Game Boy game. It would run on the Game Boy with all of its features, and sometimes it would have color palette information when you put it into a Game Boy Color. A black cartridge was Game Boy Color enhanced. It would have color, it would have additional features, things like that, but it could still run on a Game Boy. And interestingly enough, Link's Awakening DX was a black cartridge. It could run on an original Game Boy. And then there were transparent cartridges, which were Game Boy Color only. They would not run on original Game Boy hardware. And I think we're going to see something similar here, I think. Or saying I think it's going to happen is maybe a bit strong, but
that's just a prediction.
It's a likely possibility. It's something I'm willing to put out there as something I believe could happen. Yeah. And I'd love to see that, actually. I think it would be cool. Nobody's doing weird stuff like that right now.
Yeah, weird kind of disappeared.
That's assuming this thing takes cartridges.
Right, yeah. It could just be, what if it's an all-digital console? The first...
I kind of hope not.
I mean, that future is coming. Mm-hmm. What if Nintendo's the first to do it in a shocking twist?
Yeah, Nintendo's the one I'm not ready to see it from, because I actually want this thing... I want it to be backwards compatible with my Switch games. I could see it having a Switch cartridge slot, but its games do not take if they don't release any games for it. The cartridge slot is just for original Switch games, which I can live with. I
think physical games are still quite strong in the Nintendo Switch. Obviously, digital is the predominant form of media everywhere now, but physical games are dying, but not quite as fast as you might think. And I think there is a sizable market out there that gets their Switch games physically.
I agree. I think, especially because it's kids, the Switch is more kid-focused than any other, which is ironic because cartridges are kind of terrible for kids, but...
Right, they
They
They made them
and
taste
stuff.
all bad. So,
But
so
I
kids
do
don't eat 'em.
think I'll eat my hat if the PS6
You'll eat
has
your Switch
a-
cartridges.
Yeah, I'll eat my Switch cartridges if the PlayStation 6 has a disc drive by default.
Yeah, I certainly don't think the
there's just no
PlayStation
way.
6 is going to have one. They're already kicking and screaming for the PS5 Pro to support it. Yeah. So, but yeah, I do think we are headed towards that future. But if I were a betting man, I would say the Switch 2 supports physical media.
Yeah. At least for backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
It also is just kids. If kids are buying games for it, cash is king for kids. Kids don't have a debit card.
So here's another kind of crazy idea. What do you guys make of the fact, or not the fact, but the theory that because there's such a massive install base for Nintendo Switch, we're getting like a Series S, Series X situation where the Switch 2 is a souped up Switch. Basically what I'm saying is all Switch 2 games will also be able to run on the Nintendo Switch.
I think it will be like that falls into my Game Boy Color theory. I think it'll be like that at first. But I think eventually we get Switch 2 only games a few years down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope so. I think the most exciting games and the most exciting innovations happen when there is a clean break from one piece of hardware to the next.
I agree. And the Switch is 7 years old now.
It is very much showing its age. So the Switch, launched in 2017. It is now towards the end of 2024. And we did get a Switch reveal announcement. Did we get the announcement in?
I think it was in September.
Man, when did we get it? Now I have to look it up. Let's see.
Yeah, but I don't think we're gonna get a clean break here. The install base is too big. The Switch is just too, and I also don't see Nintendo being ready to jump into more modern game development right off the rip.
Yeah. So it looks like it was revealed in October of 2016 originally. So yeah, I do think this thing is imminent, especially because just recently all these rumors started exploding. So it stands to reason that this thing is now being manufactured. A lot more people are now seeing it. Developers are now seeing it. Developers are being flown out to Nintendo for a secret reason. If you follow them on Twitter or whatever, you can see they're all, not all, but you know what I mean, like a hand-picked group of Nintendo-centric YouTubers, developers are being flown out to Nintendo for some secretive reason, whatever could that be, right? So I think Nintendo is prepping for the reveal of this thing. I think it could come at any moment. So,
do you think that this thing's going to support DLSS?
I do, yeah.
I have that under likely. Yeah. I think it's almost certain, which would be fascinating because it would mean Nintendo would be the first ones to have...
Well, okay, so let me just pause you there. Do we really think it'll be DLSS or will it be something equivalent to PSSR where it's this maybe different kind of upscaling solution that involves NVIDIA technology?
NVIDIA was heavily involved with the last Nintendo, so the Switch, I think the integrated system's like a Tegra or something.
NVIDIA's doing the chipset. It might have another name, but it's just going to be DLSS.
It's going to be it's going to be AI enhanced superscaling.
I mean, we don't know for certain yet, but I do not.
Performance, AI enhanced superscaling is some of the best you can do.
Yeah, I don't think PSSR is going to be that different from FSR4, the AI based upscaler coming from AMD soon. We'll obviously have to see, but we're also seeing, even once they're using AI, the stuff we've seen out of PSSR is not, it's beating the teeth off of FSR, and I think it's maybe beating XESS, but it's not caught up with DLSS.
Yeah.
And
so
I think Nintendo might be, because they're working with NVIDIA, not AMD.
Right. I mean, there's a very high chance.
So far ahead with AI upscaling that I bet you they could fit it on like a mobile chip.
Which is what we're asking them to do.
Yeah. No, I certainly could see it happening. I could absolutely see Nintendo having DLSS, which would be such an interesting kind of power equalizer, because this machine will for certain be underpowered compared to the Sony Microsoft equivalents, but resolution-wise, the image quality might look cleaner than a lot of games on the PS5 and Xbox Series. So very interested.
If it has frame gen.
What they're packing there. Yeah, frame gen too. Yeah, it just depends on how much NVIDIA hardware they were able to squeeze into that little thing. So Well, it is going to be a bit bigger, so maybe it won't be too little.
To be clear, I find it very likely that NVIDIA can do this because that's what AMD... I don't want to get into the weeds too much about FSR4, but when AMD talks about FSR4, they are talking about handheld gaming devices. They have not talked about it in the context of consoles or desktop PCs. They have only talked about it in the... Yes, they're saying they want to improve battery life using AI upscaling for handheld.
So for like Steam Deck?
Steam Deck... and all the others, the ROG Ally, it's actually it's a blossoming market.
PCs. Yeah,
AMD is actually making a lot of money on these handheld PCs right now. So, and I don't know if they're making a lot of money on it right now, but they see a booming market there. I also we don't know about it yet, but there's probably an Xbox handheld in the near future. There've been a lot of rumors.
It does seem to be happening,
and it'll be AMD based, and so. FSR4 will probably be on that bad boy. And they've been saying, nobody wants to play a game for an hour. They want to play a game for 3 hours. And the way you get there is going to have to involve AI upscaling. Probably.
Yeah, so Switch 2 with DLSS is very enticing. And apparently this thing is going to support a 4K resolution. It's going to support 120 FPS. These are all...
God, I hope it can do both at the same time.
Rumored specs. Again, take everything we say in this episode with a grain of salt. But... with DLSS, I'm sure it could for some games.
Yeah. Do we think Nintendo dips another toe in VR? This would be their third.
I don't think so.
Really? I mean, they've done it twice already.
I don't know. I think game companies are getting shyer and shyer about VR, which is a shame to me.
It is a shame. But yeah, I think the big ones are. I think PlayStation is backing out of it. I could see Nintendo, because this thing will have equal or greater specs likely than a MetaQuest 3. I could see Nintendo taking a swing at it.
Yeah.
I mean, because they did some cool stuff with...
So how would that look like, though? Would they supply a headset? I mean,
I think it would have to be a headset.
Balloon the cost of this thing so much, too.
I don't think it'll be... I think it'll be like a PSVR situation, where it's a separate... headset, but it would still be portable, probably. Maybe a cable to it, and you can put the thing in your pocket. I don't know.
I don't see it. I'll be surprised if that comes to pass, but I really think if you were to ask me to make a bet right now on what this thing would look like, my guess is Nintendo plays it safe. I think it is a very much souped up Nintendo Switch, still has the JoyCons, still has the hybrid factor to it, and it's packing DLSS, it's packing 4K 120 FPS capability, and I think that's it. Anything beyond that, I'm going to be pleasantly surprised. If the dual screen thing comes to pass, I'll be surprised. I don't think it'll need to
push 4K, because
with DLSS,
there's no resolutions yet we're dealing with.
You can upscale 720p to 4K with DLSS. Yeah. I think it would be insane for them not to. I think because I would rather...
Yeah, I mean, let's just put it this way: handheld, you're not going to see a 4K resolution, obviously.
No, you'll probably
handheld.
Be 1080p.
It's probably still going to be. I was actually going to say 720p.
Maybe.
So 720p handheld, but up to 4K docked, I could see being the case.
I think if we have DLSS, I think it's more likely to be a 1080p handheld screen because that's free. 720p to 1080p DLSS upscaling. It's just free. There's no reason not to do it. And you can't upscale. You can't go below 720p and then use DLSS. It's just not going to work. There's just not enough visual information there. What do you guys think? So this is a pie in the sky wish from me. I want this thing to have a 3D screen. I love
you're crazy, man.
You're
I
crazy.
love the 3DS.
Absolutely nuts.
Nintendo's sitting on this technology, doing nothing with it. Nobody else can make it. And it was cool. Like, when the 3DS was new, nobody talked about it. Now, anybody who talks about the 3DS, they're reminiscing about that 3D screen and how cool it was.
It was cool. It was one of Nintendo's many neat innovations, but I don't think we see it ever again from them.
I would love to see it.
I hate to say it, I played the 3DS with no screen, with this 3D always off.
I usually had it on.
I also usually had it off. It made me dizzy, man. I thought it was cool as a gimmick for a little bit, but I'd always end up turning it off because it was just
you can't play VR
too much.
Either. You're just too soft.
Yeah, I'm too soft, apparently.
Too soft for the innovation.
Mentally, yeah. But yeah, 3D. No. Like I could see the two screens before the 3D.
Especially no, if they do,
You're just asking for them to make a 3DS too.
Yeah, I would love to see it. No, it would be the opposite. It'd be so weird if you had a 3D screen in your hand while you were playing the main game on the big screen on the TV. It'd be so. What would you even do with it? It'd be so weird.
Just being blasted with all sorts of visual stimulus.
I love it though.
With
the 3D
and your VR headset, you know.
Especially if they've worked on it any, because the new 3DS, I don't know if you guys have you ever upgraded to the new 3DS, but it worked so much better. Like, you didn't have to keep your head still. Like, it was a rock solid 3D image, no matter what you were doing.
I did hear the new 3DS was much better. Remember I was an ambassador, so I had the original 3DS.
I did too.
I never upgraded from that, and it was difficult using the 3D mode on that console.
Fun aside, I actually upgraded to a new 3DS to play Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, my first Monster Hunter game. Because
was that exclusive to the new one?
No, but it was enhanced. I think it was a better frame rate, but I know it had the little C stick to control the camera. It was a difficult game to play without that.
Shout out to the C stick. Do we think the C stick makes a comeback?
I think it does because the Switch has a C stick.
So I'm talking about C stick.
You think we're gonna get a third stick?
Here's a big one as well. Do you think they'll swap to Hall Effect joysticks?
No. I have that under long shot because I'd love to see it, but I think there's no way that we get an upgrade to the JoyCons. Actually, I think we're gonna get a downgrade.
So you think they're gonna still have drift?
I'm 100% certain. Yeah. I mean,
wow,
the PS4 controller
really?
has drift. Like every controller out. Or not PS4, PS5. And so does the new Xbox ones. Every single controller. Their controllers are so expensive to make because of all the stuff they cram into them already. With the gyro, the batteries, the Bluetooth, all of that. It's costing them so much already. They are not going to shell out for Hall Effect joysticks.
Which is a shame.
I think they might have a little more longevity. They might source them from somewhere a little nicer, but I do not think that we are getting Hall Effect. I think it's extremely unlikely. Because they would also have to acknowledge the drift, which they've still never done.
They kind of vaguely did.
Yeah,
I mean, they fix it for
they
free.
say they'll fix it, right?
I've done it. I've had mine fixed. And it is free. It just takes
that's
6 weeks or whatever.
I don't know. That would just, as a consumer who doesn't really care about the details, right? As a consumer, I would be furious if the biggest problem from their previous console carried over to their next console.
I have zero doubt in my mind that it's going to carry it. I think there might be less drift, but there will not be Hall Effect joysticks.
Yeah.
They might come up with something to make them a little more resilient, maybe less likely to get dust, something like that. I don't actually know what mechanical problem causes drift in Joy-Cons.
It's like a wear down.
Okay. Because I think the reason it happens with a Switch is a portability thing, I think. Or are they just crappier joysticks than other brands use? Because every modern controller eventually drifts right now, unless it uses Hall Effect.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Joy-Cons, apparently, rumor is they're still going to be Joy-Cons, right? So
yeah.
I don't expect to see too big of a difference. The rumor is that they're bigger, but do we think the internals are going to change? Do we think the HD rumble is going to improve to be like a PS5 level haptics, or do you think Nintendo's not going to focus on such a thing?
I think that's likely. I also think they're going to take out the IR camera because that's adding to cost for no benefit to anyone.
There were a couple games that used it, right?
There were. I can't name one, and I can't name what they did.
I think
other than the garage.
One two Switch.
1-2 Switch. Yeah,
might
1-2
have used
Switch
it. Yeah,
did. Nobody cared. Jordan really loved it. Jordan.
Did Switch Sports use it for anything?
I don't think so. The only other thing I can think of that used it is the little Toy-Con bugs in the cardboard thing.
Oh yeah,
and you could actually use it as a camera, I think. But it's not a free part. It's not a low cost part to put in.
It does seem like kind of a relic that they could probably shed.
Yeah, and just
yeah. I mean, we're kind of already talking about it cost, right? So obviously this thing, we're gonna get the console. We're probably gonna get a controller. How much do we think this thing is going to cost?
$399 non-OLED.
You think there's going to be an OLED at launch?
$499 OLED.
I mean, if there's an OLED at launch,
I'll shell out $500 without even thinking about it for an OLED at launch.
Yeah, I doubt there's an OLED. I think there's one, maybe two models, one with a higher, more hard drive space or something.
Right? I think there's going to be. I think there's going to be more hard drive space in an OLED. These OLED screens used to be difficult to come by in this form factor, and they're just not anymore. The Steam Deck has an OLED. The Switch has an OLED. The screens in this form factor exist now. It would be, if they do not release an OLED, that is a choice that they're making.
That was the rumor for the longest time, that the Switch 2 at launch will not have an OLED model. Yeah, but maybe this thing got delayed because they changed their mind on that. I don't know, just throwing that out there. But
I would love to see it, because
I would love to see it. Yeah,
I will not upgrade.
It's
later.
Hard for me to go. It's hard once you've seen OLED. It is very hard to go back.
It
right.
is.
So even on like a Nintendo Switch OLED, playing on that thing, looking at the colors pop on that thing. Obviously, the Switch 2 is going to have better graphics. It's still probably going to be better to look at the Switch 1. Like, your eyes will prefer the image on the Switch 1,
and
because
I think
OLED really makes that much of a difference.
I think that's a reason they might do an OLED Switch 2, because they don't want to look unfavorable. Has Nintendo ever released a worse screen than a prior product? I don't think so. So that would be a first, because the Game Boy Advance screen was better than the Game Boy Color, was better than the Game Boy Pocket, was better than the Game Boy. The only exception would be the Game Boy Light. The Game Boy Color did not have a backlight. But other than that, I don't think they've ever regressed in screen quality. So that would be a first for them to not have an OLED at launch.
Yeah. So this thing's going to be packing, presumably, some pretty up-to-date NVIDIA technology if this packs DLSS, right? Do we think it's going to pack, what, DLSS 3? 4?
I mean, not. It does not have 4. You got to keep in mind that originally this thing was releasing this year. So it's going to have DLSS tech from last year, probably. So that's DLSS 3, maybe Frame Gen, because Frame Gen was probably in the pipeline. So maybe 3.5, but there's no way it's got 4, I think. And I also think
3.5 would be crazy, in my opinion. Even if it had 3.5, that would be huge.
I think it's a strong possibility, because it wasn't in manufacturing yet that we know of. So I think it's very possible that it has 3.5. But it's probably not literally going to be 3.5. It's not going to. We're not going to be able to.
It's going to be some kind of compromised version, I think.
It's not going to be toggleable. I will say that.
Oh, no.
If this has DLSS, you will not get settings on a Nintendo Switch.
Oh,
Nintendo
absolutely
is
not.
going to show you that. And they're probably never going to mention it. They're just going to say, look at this remarkable resolution we have.
Right.
And then Digital Foundry is going to be able to look closely and say, this grass is kind of blurry.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, this ridge pattern is indicative of... It's like, I love those guys.
Yeah.
But, so... All that being said, price. You're guessing $400 for a base model, $500 for an enhanced?
There's no way this thing's under $400, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the economic situation is not what it was when Nintendo Switch launched. I do think this thing is going to be more expensive than Nintendo Switch. There's no way it's $300 like Nintendo Switch was. I think $400 is a likely target. But what I'm afraid of is that we are severely underestimating the economic realities.
I agree. I think it could be higher. It could
even
be 450
higher
or 500.
You
gotta look at the value of the yen right now. It's not in a good place.
I was going to bring that up. The yen is in a horrific place right now. Japan's not doing great economically, and I'm kind of concerned that the PS5 Pro is not really a Sony symptom, but just a symptom of Japan and a symptom of the economics of consoles in 2024.
Digital Foundry pointed out something that I found fascinating related to that, which is that Sony might be exploring the idea that this, in the same way that phones did, when the iPhone was new, $200-$300 probably, and they did not think the consumer would go higher than that, but then they realized people are spending all day on these things. People are spending 20 to 40 hours playing video games a week right now, because all in all, it's a relatively cheap hobby. So maybe they're willing to pay $1,000 for a console.
Yeah. I think that's a very astute observation, and I think they're probably right. I think people will gripe and moan about the price for a while, but I think ultimately they will shell out for it, which is unfortunate.
I would shell out $400 without thinking about it. $500, I'm like, oh, come on, guys.
But even
I would do it.
Speaking to the PS5 Pro example, that price point, $700, got huge backlash. But already you can see people online walking that back. You can see pre-orders for the stand, for the disc drive selling out across Amazon, Best Buy. Obviously, there's some scalper element to that, but there is more interest in this thing already than I thought there would be, because I think people are already sort of digesting and accepting that price, which is kind of scary for, like, what does that mean for the future? Like, I could see a world in which $500 is the base price for Nintendo's next hardware.
Yeah, I think with the PS5 Pro, so I went into it from a buy a PC perspective, and I still stand by you can get within $100 of that price with a PC that is going to do as well or better. But it's still a PC, and console gamers don't want a PC at the end of the day. And, you know, they're not wrong for that. I had an issue recently. I was having weird frame rate in a game I was playing, and the solution was to restart my PC. It wasn't particularly complicated, but you don't get that on a console. You don't get a weird frame rate. The game either works or it doesn't.
Yeah, it either works or it crashes. So.
Yeah, and that, well,
which
I'd
in a way
is
easier to deal with, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you put it on, you plug it into your TV, it just works. I am a big, I think if you're particularly interested in the hobby, maybe just figure it out, because it's not that complicated. I use my PC on my TV all the time, and people act like that's impossible, but it works. It's fun. I don't know. What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is there's a market for a high-end, simple experience, I think. And pre-built PCs are bad at that in a way that consoles are not.
You said it, right? A market for a high-end, simple experience. Look at how many people buy iPhones every year.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and people are paying $1,000 a year for iPhones.
Yeah.
So I think the tech enthusiast consumer is conditioned by mobile phones largely to pay a premium for technology, especially new technology. And I think these console manufacturers are waking up to that reality. And that, coupled with the dire economic kind of situation, coupled with the high cost now of manufacturing these things, unlike the PS4, Xbox One generation, the cost to manufacture a PS5 Series X has not really gone down. No. And that is why the price isn't going down either. So things are just very expensive at the moment, and I don't really see any sign of that stopping. And because of that, I could see the Nintendo Switch price shocking the Switch 2 price shocking a lot of people.
I mean, you also have to look, people are willing to pay $1,000 for a phone every year. Not everyone does that, or every 2 years. People do that all the time. So if I'm somebody who sells a console every 7 years, I'm thinking I can probably jack this price up a little, because I don't know about everybody else. I'm also not somebody who upgrades my phone every year. I don't like new phones that much, but I would pay, especially if I'm getting something for it. If I get a more powerful console because I paid $500 for the Nintendo Switch, I'm okay with that.
I think the difference between the eventual Switch 2 reveal and the PS5 Pro reveal is that they'll reveal the Switch 2. It'll be impressive kind of on a hardware level, and they'll announce an exorbitant price. Let's just say, for sake of argument, it's $500.
Yeah.
But they will also show the new Mario running on it, and everyone will forget about that price.
Yeah.
I mean, they won't forget about it, but it'll make the high price go down a lot easier when they see these new games. And that's the big problem with the PS5 Pro. And again, Digital Foundry made this very astute point. The price would have gone down so much easier if they had shown some new games running on that thing. But they didn't. They showed a bunch of PS4 games running on it. And that's just such a baffling decision in hindsight. They showed PS4 games to market the PS5 Pro. I'm confident Nintendo will not make that same mistake. Maybe they'll show one or two Switch games just to show that, hey, look at how much better it runs on Switch 2. Yeah.
And I think that's indicative of the current reality of the PlayStation ecosystem. Like, as much as we joke and kid that, hey, they ain't got no games, at some point the jokes have to come from somewhere, and PlayStation doesn't really have a lot of big ticket games that aren't like remasters from PlayStation 4.
That's true on the PS5. The original PlayStation has no games, I think, was a PS4 joke, and it was because the launch lineup for the PS4 was...
But at this
awful.
Point in the PS4 lifecycle, that problem was remediated.
Yeah, solved.
PS4 was flooded with fantastic games.
I don't think it's fair to say the PS5 doesn't have games anymore.
We've hashed this point out before, but the reason is because of Sony's live service push, where now they have a bunch of canceled games, and the first parties don't have much to show. So, again, I think the PS5 games are coming. It's just taking a heck of a lot longer this generation than it did because of their huge error investing in the live service model.
Yeah, they made a critical error investing in live service games.
I just want to point out something related to price. The Switch launched at $300, right, in 2017? Yep. $300 in 2017 is $385.28 today, accounting for inflation. That's not accounting for the value of the yen, all of those issues. There's no way this thing's less than $400.
Yeah, I think 400 minimum is a safe guess.
You think we're getting $70 games?
That's a tough one.
Tears of the Kingdom was $70, and it should not have been because
that's true. Tears of the Kingdom was $70. I forgot about that. Has Nintendo done that with any other game yet, or was Tears of the Kingdom the first? Okay,
just Tears of the Kingdom. And
looking at how it sold, I don't think they're gonna have any issue with $70 games. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. So $70. I could see $70 Switch 2 games. I'm gonna go out there and say $500 Switch 2.
Yeah,
really?
I'd say 400, 500.
I could see 450, 500 is. I mean, I would still buy it. So I think you're probably right. But it's a bitter pill to swallow to see the Nintendo Switch 2, which another rumor I've seen pretty consistently is that it's going to have a similar power to the Steam Deck. Although it's going to be NVIDIA, so it'll have DLSS, and that kind of changes the game.
But I do want to point out, I also have to point out, the reality of Nintendo is just different from Sony and Microsoft, right? You're going to have little kids asking their parents to buy the new Nintendo Switch. And if it truly is $500, their parents are probably going to look at that price and be like, what happened here, right? The Nintendo customer isn't really used to shelling out that much money for hardware.
And they've gotten this wrong before. The 3DS launched at $350, I think. What did the 3DS launch at? You should know. You're an ambassador. You paid it.
You're an ambassador too,
I know,
brother.
Yeah, but I was a young man. I was like 14.
250,
and people revolted. People didn't buy it, and they had to lower the price. Not even a year in.
Yeah, but again, did the 3DS launch with any must-have games other than Mario 64?
The 3DS didn't have Mario 64. That was the original DS.
Oh, right. That was the original DS.
The 3DS had no must-have games.
Exactly. So that changes the calculus so much.
Yeah.
Right?
And they
launching
won't make that
without games, people will revolt. But if you launch with games, people will swallow a lot. So
yeah. This will definitely have games. There's no doubt in my mind this thing launches with the 3D Mario.
I would be shocked if that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Just appalled even if that wasn't the case.
I probably won't buy it at launch if there's no 3D Mario.
Oh yeah.
I
don't know. Like
off.
if there's no 3D Mario but a Mario Kart at launch, I'm absolutely getting this thing. Mario Kart for me is a console seller.
I'd probably hold off. I wouldn't have anybody to play it with because I bet my friends won't get it other than you.
Well, I mean, for me at least, Mario Kart is very much a family kind of split screen affair.
Yeah, I live alone. That doesn't come up a whole lot.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I
also live alone, but
yeah, but I don't go visit my family and play Mario Kart with them. I don't have
right.
Yeah, it
just a car
doesn't come up. Yeah, I go home. I rent a car to go home. It's cheaper than owning one. But
yeah, fascinating, man. I just can't wait for them to reveal this thing finally, because we've been talking about this thing for years at this point.
Yeah.
So it really feels like we're close, but as always, Nintendo could choose to slap us in the face and just not reveal it for several more months.
Can I tell you, I want to part the kimono a little bit. What I'm really excited for, an episode I want us to do is seeing the Switch off, right before the Switch 2 comes out. I'm so excited to do that episode. There's so much to say.
It all depends on the timing. I mean, if this thing, we could get an announcement tonight of a show tomorrow, and then we're out of luck.
No, we can't. We got to do that episode right before the console launches.
Oh yeah, that's fair. Yeah, we don't have to time it with the reveal. Yeah,
we haven't even seen. There are some games coming up that have potential to be the best game on the Switch. There are still Metroid.
Yeah, we've got a Zelda coming up. We've got
Zelda,
Metroid,
Prime, Mario and Luigi.
Yeah, just to really need to commend Nintendo on the management of their first parties for the Nintendo Switch's life cycle, because there's always a big game on the horizon. There's always something to talk about on Nintendo Switch. And I hate to make comparisons, but I feel like it needs to be said. Sony had that in the PS4 era. After their kind of tumultuous launch period, They don't have that in the PS5 era.
Xbox had it at some
So-
point too, but they do not right now.
Yeah, but Nintendo really killed it with their first parties on Nintendo Switch, so I don't really see any reason for that to diminish or get worse for the next console. So excited to see what they bring to the table there. But yeah,
I'm excited to see third-party support.
yeah,
Especially if they're matching Steam Deck specs.
right. We're probably going to
with
get
the addition
a lot more third-party games on this thing than
Yeah.
we usually do on Nintendo consoles.
It having DLSS is gonna. I'm still probably gonna lean PC for buying stuff, third party.
Mhm.
But it'll make that decision slightly harder because the Switch 2 will probably be a better experience than the Steam Deck on a lot of games.
Yeah, it's going to bring some interesting twists to the equation, I think. But yeah, I'm excited, man. I really hope we get an announcement this week. I'm ready. I'm ready to learn about this thing. I'm tired of it being shrouded in secrecy. I'm tired of all the rumors. I just want to know what this thing is.
Yeah, me too. There's been a little too much smoke and not enough fire.
At this point, I've suffocated and died from all this smoke inhalation. So it's a bit much.
Okay, we're
All right.
tired of sitting in the hot room here.
Yeah, we want to be rescued by the firemen at this point.
This
It's too
analogy's
much.
out of hand.
Yeah, we've gone a little too far.
All right, any final pie in the sky hopes, dreams, wishes
Let me get
for
on my
Nintendo
list real
Switch
quick.
2 Super U?
Oh, one I'm interested. If this thing has back compat, do you think it'll run original Nintendo Switch games at a stable frame rate? Like,
Okay, we say if this thing has back compat. If this thing does not
it'd be
have back
insane.
compat,
It'd be insane.
Nintendo is going to get burned down.
Yeah.
Like,
So
there's
when
just
this thing has back compat,
no shot. Yeah.
do you
yeah.
think stuff like Tears of the Kingdom, where it's clearly trying to hit 30 frames per second and fails, do you think those will run better? Maybe.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I think that's a fair assumption to make. But like,
It's
I
not
think,
historically they haven't done that.
but I think the Switch 2 is going to have a lot more in common. It's going to feel more iterative than a Nintendo console has felt in a long time.
Yeah, I agree.
But
I don't think it's.
I
gonna
do
have-
think separate from that, we are going to get, like you said, a lot of individual games that get some special juice poured into them to run at a higher resolution, higher frame rate, what have you, on
hope
the
so.
Switch Successor. So
I playing Breath of the Wild at 60 frames per second, DLSS up to 4K would be
That would be
officially. You can do this on PC already. I don't know if you can get DLSS, but you can get up to 4K 60 on PC.
yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
But the emulators are just, one, they're a hassle to do. Two, it's not real. I mean, if you own the game, I guess it's legal, but good luck ripping
gray
a
area.
Switch cartridge. It's not easy. I'd like for it to be official. I'd like it a
Yeah.
lot. Oh,
All right.
no,
Yeah, what's up?
I got more. I'd love to see Street Pass come back. I'd love to see some more.
Oh my gosh, Street
some
Pass.
social stuff from the 3DS that like they just kind of abandoned for
Hmm.
some reason. People are carrying their Switch around. I'd love some stuff like that. Some like
Yeah, people are
quirky,
carrying their
weird-
Switch around. Yeah, but that definitely feels like an era that no longer exists, right? The Mii
doesn't-
era.
I don't need it to be Street Pass.
You could
I
still
want it
make
to be-
Mii's, right? Could you still
You
make
can
Mii's?
still make Mii's, but they're buried in the settings.
No way. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah. I don't care about Mii's that much. It doesn't need to be Street Pass. I want something to happen because I passed somebody on the street that had a
You
Nintendo
want-
Switch in their backpack. I want an alarm to go
want-
off that says nerd
What I
alert.
want that I will only accept is PictoChat. I want the return of PictoChat. PictoChat has to be
So
in for this to
true.
be a purchase.
I
for
have
me.
a fun story about PictoChat. I used to my next door neighbor and best friend growing up, Jordan, his parents were very strict, and so he wasn't allowed outside after like 8 o'clock, even in the summer. And so it'd be 8 o'clock and the sun is still up. And I would sit like on the corner, just barely in range, and I would PictoChat him because we didn't have phones yet. We were like,
right.
children. And I would
Yeah.
sit on the corner and I would PictoChat him, and we would
That's
hang
great.
out on PictoChat for a little bit after he was forced to go inside.
Wild.
Oh man, what an era! I miss
Yeah.
those times. Yeah, it would be cool, but I again highly doubt we get to see something like that in Switch 2.
Microphone in the console would be nice too, so you don't have to use the app.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I actually
Yeah.
kind of like the app. I wish it was an option for other consoles and stuff, but needing it is weird.
I think it's becoming more common, actually. I think with PlayStation and Xbox too, you can use their app to actually talk.
Yeah, I'd like an
parties.
app on PC to do that, honestly, because when I play on my couch, I'm obviously far away from this microphone.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work so well.
Yeah. All right. I think we've covered every single thing that could possibly happen for the Switch 2. I mean, I would generally be shocked if they revealed something that we have not predicted yet.
It's a full dive VR.
Yeah.
It's Sword Art Online.
And we called out VR too, so if it's a VR only console, we did kind of nail that. So, all right, what have we been playing?
I have played. Let me check the numbers real quick. 32 hours of Satisfactory in the past 7 days.
Yeah, so I think I'm at 15 hours, so basically
that's
half
good.
as much as you did.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And I'm at 2.
2. Okay, well,
are you disappointed with the launch, or just you've played so much of it?
I just played so much of it in early access that
that's why I didn't want to be in that position.
I got all the way up to pretty much the end tier in early access.
Yeah.
So
you have to do it again now.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm optimizing heavily, and I also don't have a lot of time to play games.
See, okay. Let's talk about Satisfactory for a while, because last week when you all talked about it, it was all gobbledygook, and it was just like, okay, I understand some of the words you're saying.
Well,
but
let's say what the game is first of all, and you can do that because you're new to it. But
yeah, so Satisfactory is a factory building game, and the conceit of the game is you arrive on this, I guess, alien planet, and you are supposed to terraform it or something for human?
No, you were a pioneer for a company called Fix It, and you were part of the Save the Day program. There is some threat to Earth that you have not been told about. You do not know what it is at any point, I don't think. And
I wasn't really paying attention to the story.
You were building something, you do not know what, but the something you are building will theoretically save the Earth. And you have this AI in your ear trying to make you feel bad for not being productive enough and stuff, in a joking way. It's not like hassling you. It's pretty rare you get dialogue in this game.
Right. So the story is whatever. Like, it's just a bit of fluff to kind of set the scene. But you're on this planet with abundant resources, and you are to build a factory that makes use of these resources, combines resources with other resources to make more resources, etc., etc., etc. So it starts out pretty simple, pretty straightforward. If you've played a game that involves resource gathering, you're like, okay, I get this. But very quickly, it goes into the realm of, I have to actually plan things out. I have to speed up or overclock production of this resource so I can accurately make enough of this resource, that sort of thing. So if that...
Yeah, it's cooked when you have to start pulling out the calculator and doing complex algebraic calculations to determine the exact rate you should clock your machine to.
How many screws do I need?
How many screws per second do I need?
I'm fine.
Screws are literally the bottleneck.
I'm literally on that problem right now. Like, how many screws do I need to?
There's a hard drive that you can grab that will give you a recipe to turn iron directly into screws and not have to go through an intermediary.
No way.
But that's hard to find because it's a one in whatever. Yeah, you've got to just get lucky.
I remember getting it super early in one of my save files, and it revolutionized my factory.
It cuts your factory in half.
That's a game-changing upgrade, honestly.
There are a few like that, yeah. There are a few. Wow. I have an alternate recipe to make reinforced iron plates with no screws. It's threaded. It uses copper wire instead, which is dirt cheap. Copper, for me right now, is not used for anything. So I can make my reinforced iron plates. But the problem is I don't really need them anymore. I'm past the part of the game where I needed a ton of them.
Yeah, so what I will say is this game does a very good job about balancing the factory building and the exploration of the planet you're on. Because a lot of times those two things feed into each other in really intelligent ways. And it's very addicting, right? It's addicting exploring the planet. It's addicting adding to your factory. It's really satisfying seeing a plan sort of come online and seeing the production just happen, right? That's not really... I know, like, if you're listening to this and you haven't played it, you're probably like, what are you talking about? But
yeah, it's a unique feeling.
This really is, a singular feeling that not any games I've played, at least, have really captured, where it's just like, okay, I have this plan, I'm going to execute on it, and then when it works, it feels incredible.
Yes. I was gutted I mentioned, I think last week, that I don't love to play games like this multiplayer, but I did play multiplayer for a minute with a friend. Like, I think he was on less than an hour, and he managed to infuriate me. He built this wall going through an open field of conveyor belts stacked on top of each other to move resources. And I got far enough in the game that I want to use trucks for resources now to get them to my factory, where I'll put them on belts.
See, like, I don't even know trucks are in the game, you know?
It was tractors. Like, you're close to unlocking them.
Yeah, okay.
And you can put a station and run a belt into it, and then you can have an autopilot tractor going between stations. So you can, instead of doing a belt through an open field, if your resource is far away, you can just have a tractor, and it has higher throughput than just belts as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that, but the problem was I had this massive wall down this field, and I had to, so I only needed to move one resource, but now I needed to convert every resource that was on these belts to use trucks now, and that took me an entire evening to do. It was like 3 hours of work probably.
Just because of your friend's dumb wall?
Just to untangle, it wasn't just him, because when he did it, there were only 3 belts on it, I think, but I was like, well, he already did it, so I had stacked on top of it, and now it's 6 belts tall. I had iron on it, I had copper on it, I had caterium on it, I had coal on it, and I had to...
That was certainly a word you used.
Yeah, caterium. Caterium is not in the main progression. You have to just find caterium.
So I will say, and this is my first factory building game, so I'm probably doing some naive things. I'm not doing any vertical stacking yet.
I have not...
The idea of that kind of intimidates me. I don't know, like, how to do it, really.
I'm doing very little of it myself. But
yeah, so my factory is very, I mean, I'm sure if you guys see it, you'll be disgusted. It's pretty unorganized.
Are you using foundations?
No. It's just like out in the wild. Yeah.
You should absolutely. If you use foundations, you can lock to a grid.
Okay, interesting.
It makes everything a million times easier.
I really do think I'm very close to the point where I just need to scrap everything and just build it with the knowledge I have now.
Yeah.
Because obviously when you're first starting the game, the game's like, okay, put down this smelter. I'm like, okay, here's the smelter. It's like, put down this constructor. Here's the constructor. And it's only once you're really kind of into it, you see that, oh, okay, I'm basically building a freaking computer here.
Yeah.
And now everything's kind of crisscrossed, and it really is the equivalent of spaghetti code, where I'm the only one who knows where things are and how things work. Like, if you were to drop into my world, you would probably just be like, "What?"
I would actually really like to see it, though.
What is this tangled? Yeah, of course. But it's just like a tangled mess.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I knew what I did now, I could plan things out better. But like, it really comes from a position of ignorance where you just build on that, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you have this giant conglomerate of stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
That really doesn't make any sense to an outside observer.
Yeah. Yeah. My 2 tips for a new Satisfactory player is, 1, use foundations the second you unlock them, because it just makes it easier when everything is grid aligned. It's easier to like say I need 4 smelteries. I can take up the minimum amount of space by just putting them literally touching each other. Right angles for the right angles.
Right now it's such a problem. And I actually run into that where I'm trying to put something down and it just barely clips. I'm like, oh, this is so annoying. I can't fit this in here. But obviously grids would make that a lot better. Yeah.
It makes it much faster. So like you could probably tear down your factory and rebuild it in an hour if you understand how it works in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's free. You don't lose anything to...
Right, because you get all the resources back.
Yeah.
But when I first unlocked the the platforms and the ramps and all that, I was just like, okay, I see what's happening here. You want me to build like an actual like factory to house my stuff.
Yeah.
But like I was just like, maybe I'll do that later. I really just want to progress in the main progression right now. But then later turned into never, and now I just have this sprawling factory out in
15
the woods,
hours of factory, So I never build walls because I find walls very constraining. Like, all my factories are open air. I just build the ground. The other thing I would highly recommend is there's an awesome dump. What's it called, Mike? Do you remember?
I unlocked that.
There are
where you can dump excess resources. But, okay, so that's another thing where I was just like, maybe I'm playing this game wrong, but I feel like...
You don't have excess resources yet.
I have excess resources, but I feel like I'm always going to use them for something.
Yeah. What I do So you built the space elevator, right?
Yeah.
So what I do, I have 2 awesome sinks. I have one by the space elevator, and once I am finished, the later tiers of the space, I think the first tier you only need 1 product, but the later ones you need more than 1. When I'm done feeding the space elevator, I start feeding those products into the awesome sink.
Oh.
Because I don't know the progression of the game, but I think there's a good chance I'll need them later, so I don't want to tear that factory down. So I just keep it running, and I feed it into the awesome sink.
So what does that give you? It gives you something for...
You get these tickets
scrapping.
that you can use to buy...
Customizations.
It's not just customization, it's largely customization, but some of them are actually really useful, like walls that you can feed belts through, or ways to feed a belt through a ceiling. So you could build a platform, and then instead of having the belt go out and around, you can just feed it straight up through the platform. And you can do that with pipes and belts and power. You can do that with all of them. And so it's actually like, later in the game, you will need these things. But I also just have a second one. My inventory gets cluttered sometimes when I'm working. And once you're far enough in the game, a lot of the resources have essentially no value in their raw form. So like if I accidentally get a bunch of ore in my inventory, I dump that into the awesome sink.
Yeah. I do have lots of ore that's just kind of sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah,
so
that
maybe I could
gets
dump
awesome
that.
synced for me.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, it is obviously, like, speaking from the perspective of someone who's never played a factory game before, it's interesting talking to you guys who are more veterans and seeing what I could be doing better. But yeah. It's a really fun game, and like obviously the factory building part, that was a known quantity. I knew that would be addictive. That's what this game is known for. But I did not expect how much I'd enjoy just exploring the planet too. I think that
really
part of the
pretty
game. Yeah, it's pretty. It's running really well. It's running constantly over 100 frames on my machine. So
for now, till the factory gets bigger.
yeah.
I have a pretty
how
big
big this thing
factory,
can get.
and I'm just under 100 frames per second on my PC. I started at 165, like locked, but I only have a 5600X. My processor's nothing to write home about these days. The thing I will recommend, global illumination is turned off by default on PC.
Yeah, it's still off on mine.
You should turn it on, dude. It's so pretty.
Really?
It's.
I was worried about the performance costs, so
I don't think it'll be huge because it's a CPU bound game largely, and it's Lumen. It's Unreal 5. It's Lumen.
Yeah, I saw it was Lumen, so I was tempted. I was just like, but I was like, okay, whatever.
I would try it.
Yeah.
It looks really good in my opinion. I have it on. I have the settings maxed out in this game.
Yeah, same. But I thought even without it, it looked pretty good. It
does, yeah.
So.
I got to point out, obviously not maxed out, but even with my big factory, I'm getting not a locked 60. I would probably, if I was going to play it long term, I would lock it at 50, but it runs on Steam Deck. On the lowest settings,
that's
lock
crazy.
it at 50. The only problem is the game doesn't have official controller support right now, so you're using a weird player-made, like kind of works, but it's a little unyieldy. Every time you need a keyboard, it's terrible. But there's controller support coming, and I actually think this would be an amazing game to kick my feet up.
Yeah, I was surprised. Like after playing it, I was just like, yeah, this definitely could work on controller. There's not too many instances where you're like, okay, you definitely need a keyboard and mouse, because even when you like click and drag resources, that can easily be done on controller. You don't have to drag; you could just drag or just click and drop, sort of thing.
And it's such a zen game. I really would like to kick my feet up and play it on the big screen, on the couch. It's not that I'd mind playing it with keyboard and mouse. I don't. I played 32 hours of it, but I put in a work week, essentially.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too. Like, Satisfactory, you do have to think when playing this game, right? It's a paradox where it's a zen game, but it also burns your brain power. So
you can get stumped for a long time, too. I have not... it's probably been 10 hours... No, it's probably been 5 or 6 hours since my factory made anything I needed it to make to actually progress in the game. I need motors right now. And so I went to the blueprint machine because I was like, I'm probably going to need more motors down the line. So I want a motor blueprint. And then I'm a little annoyed by this, but the blueprints I actually think are completely worthless in this game. I don't think I'm ever going to use them again. The blueprint machine is terrible. It's only 4x4x4, which is just too small a space. You can't do a full
upgrade later.
Yeah, it only gets to like 6x6x6 at its highest end, which I still think is not big enough. Because you can't, like, I wanted to do motors start to finish in a blueprint. And so I need to make motors, that's one assembler. And then I needed to make stators and rotors, I think. And so those are 2 more assemblers. And then I need screws, I need screws, I need steel pipes, I think I need iron plates, and I need copper wire. It's something like that. And there's just nowhere near enough room for all those constructors in there. And at that point, why am I even bothering to make a blueprint? If I can't fit the whole process in the blueprint, I don't care. And so I think stuff like that makes the game a little more tedious than Factorio, which you could just make one assembly line and then literally copy and paste it as many times as you wanted.
Are blueprints something you have to unlock, or is that something?
They're unlocked.
Okay, so I don't think I have it.
There's a machine that like is 4x4x4 foundations, and you actually have to go inside and build your entire line inside of that volume, and then you can copy it, and now you can build that entire thing like it's a building. But it's not very good in my opinion. It probably is useful in game, but it's just so limited that I don't really care for it. And that's made it is just harder. Stuff takes longer in Satisfactory. I have found myself, everything takes so much longer than it does in Factorio. But that's just kind of the nature of a 3D game, I think.
I'm just curious. I think, Mike, you've probably gotten the furthest out of the 3 of us in this game.
Yeah.
By far, yeah.
Does it end? Like, do you finish the factory and then blast off the planet or something?
There is definitely an ending in 1.0. There's a story ending.
Okay.
One previous versions didn't, but
yeah. I think there is an ending to the narrative, but I think there is also a keep playing, like a keep scaling up. I suspect there's going to be some resource at the end of the game that you just want infinite of. There's some way to sync, because that's what Factorio does. There are certain upgrades that you can continue to upgrade infinitely, and people like scale up how much science their factory can produce, and you can do that pretty much infinitely until your computer can't run it anymore. I think Satisfactory is probably going to have a similar end game.
Interesting. So I guess some advice. Would you guys recommend starting to build vertically? Yes. Or can I just keep doing everything horizontally?
You can keep going horizontally. You are eventually going to have to go vertically just because stuff takes up so much space. But I'm 30
how do
hours
you
in.
How do you do that? Like you can build
you use foundations,
but then you build ramps on those, or
I would place a foundation and then place walls up and then another foundation. And later you'll get these tubes that can, like Futurama tubes, essentially, that you can use to travel around up and down.
Yeah. It is funny. So, like I said, you do have to think while playing this game, and that's resulted in this weird phenomenon of sometimes I feel like I want to play Satisfactory. I get on and I see there's like this problem in front of me. It's just like, I don't want to tackle this problem right now. And then I get off. But then other times, like I get on, I was like, okay, I'm going to tackle this problem. And then I get sucked into this wormhole, and it's been several hours. And then I just can't stop playing. So it's either I choose to play it and play it for a long amount of time, or I choose not to play it because I'm intimidated by the work I have to do.
I have to take breaks too. I will... Like, I was building a coal power plant the other day, and I finished that, and I was like, I need 30 minutes. like, because it was work getting...
it does buggy. Like give you these, hey, it's been 2 hours, you want to go outside or
maybe
something,
eat
touch grass.
Something. Yeah.
It's a very good game, though.
Yeah.
Very, very good game.
It does have me really excited for the Factorio DLC. But I want to finish Satisfactory before that comes out, because I don't know if I'll come back to it.
Finish Satisfactory, yeah. I guess, yeah. I was kind of under the impression that this game might not have an ending, but I actually am very glad to hear that, because... There's
definitely credits, but there's also... I will play some of the end game, for sure, because I suspect it gets better. In the same way that Factorio does. Like, it's already happened for me. It is... Now that I have truck stations working and stuff, I now have one iron drop, which means I don't need to belt anything anymore. I can go set up I could find a new iron node or bunch of iron nodes, slap down a truck stop, feed those nodes into that truck stop, and then I can have it drop the iron at the same place the other truck is dropping the iron. I don't have to do any more infrastructure at the actual factory. And so what used to take, it might have been 40 minutes to an hour for me to set up a new iron node because I had to belt it all over and everything, and now it's 10 minutes for me to get that set up probably. And
That's
so
cool.
I can keep expanding. There's also better miners you unlock later to increase your resources. There's more ways to transport materials later. It's just, the game, it just keeps getting better. Like, it gets more complex as you go, but it eases you into it pretty well.
And one of the biggest things they did do in 1.0, which I just realized a little bit ago, was they all made biomass burners automatable.
Yes, you can. You can't do it with the 2 that are included with the hub, but any biomass burners you build after that, you can feed a belt into them, which you did not used to be able to do.
Not be able to do.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I just have some I have a storage container that I put some like wood in, and that feeds into a. I mean, you guys know
to convert it to biomass. Do you have solid biofuel yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got the whole
right,
yeah.
and it makes so much that it's like just such a surplus that
yeah.
I don't really have to worry about energy anymore.
I will say, and because it's your first factory game, you may not know this, but you do eventually not have to touch it at all anymore. Yeah. Eventually you will have...
I figured, that's the natural progression where eventually everything is automated. Like, I probably won't have to get leaves and stuff.
Yeah, once you're into coal...
sticks anymore.
I don't use biofuel at all anymore. It's just coal-powered, and that's just a miner feeding straight into coal power plants. Yeah.
Does it pollute the planet?
No.
You don't have to worry about pollution. That's a Factorio mechanic. You have to worry about pollution.
Oh, wow. That's
in
crazy.
Satisfactory, you don't have to worry about pollution.
Okay.
Thankfully. Nothing can destroy... That's another huge difference. Nothing destroys your factories in Satisfactory. Once you build it, it's good. In Factorio, you can actually get waves of attacks from enemies.
Oh, no, that would stress me out.
You can turn it off,
oh my
but
gosh.
You can place down turrets and stuff to protect your factory. And
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds even more hardcore than Satisfactory.
It is, for sure. I am loving Satisfactory 1.0. I am still firmly Factorio is just a masterclass in this genre. It is undefeatable. it just stuff that takes an hour in Satisfactory, I can knock out in 5 minutes in Factorio. Like, it's just...
Do you think it's just because of you're more used to...
No, it's because it's a top-down grid-based game. You can literally just build stuff faster. It is much...
Okay.
In a 2D game, it's always going to be easier to take something from here and put... sorry, I was using hand signals and we were doing an audio medium. Take something from your brain and put it in the game is always going to be easier on a top-down 2D game than it is in a first-person 3D game, because you don't... Granted, you can sort of do that in Satisfactory by just building a tower and looking down on your factory, but it's still... Stuff gets in your way, and it's just much easier in a top-down game.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to playing more. It's just I don't know what to do now, because we're gonna start getting an avalanche of games, and
UFO
obviously
50 tomorrow.
This is a game that is not you can't just knock out in a weekend. So
no.
And Shadows of Doubt hits full release here soon too. I think that's the 20th. That's this Friday is their full release.
I mean, Zelda's happening in a couple weeks, right?
Zelda. UFO 50 tomorrow. Are you guys do you have an eye on that at all?
No.
Yeah. I'm a little interested. I don't know if I'm going to do it at launch simply because there's so much happening, but
next Thursday is Shadows of Doubt's
okay.
early access.
So I have a
launch.
week at least.
Yeah, you have a week, the 26th,
to finish Satisfactory and UFO 50.
It also is coming to consoles.
UFO 50 is... I'm really excited for. I love Derek Yu. I'm hyped for this game.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it was getting great reviews, and I'm interested. It's just I don't know if I'm a day one interested.
Yeah,
but
I'll let you guys know next week because I'm for sure picking it up tomorrow.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Have we been playing anything other than Satisfactory?
I haven't been playing anything.
Nope. Connor?
No time. Too many factories to build.
Too many factories. All right. Yeah. So I think that was it then. So I thank you all for listening. Hopefully we get a Nintendo Switch 2 announcement here
tomorrow.
Here's hoping. But thank you all for listening. You can follow us at Podcast Game Talk on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Click the link in the description to join our Discord and talk to us there. Please like, rate, and review us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast services you use. Thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
See you next week. Bye.